Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Well, that ICBC dumpster fire appears to have been snuffed out. The auto insurer says its finances have turned around thanks to investments and the new enhanced care model. And this morning, Premier David Eby announced the basic rates will stay flat and another driver rebate is coming at $110. Does that help you? And what do you think of how ICBC is being managed? In about half an hour, as BC Youth Week wraps up, we'll want you to tell us about a young person in your life who inspires you. I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today. Thanks for joining us on CBC Radio 1 and CBC Television. We're also live streaming on the CBC News app, cbc.ca/BC, and on the CBC Vancouver YouTube page. Well, David Eby was in Victoria this morning where he made this announcement for drivers.
ICBC today is able to announce that they will provide a $110 rebate to drivers. The other good news announcement today is that basic rates will not be increasing. They will be remaining at the same level through till March of 2026.
Well, let us know what you think. Will this $110 rebate from ICBC help you? And what do you think of how ICBC is being managed? You can call us now, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733 in the Lower Mainland, and you can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. You can also reach us by email, and that's bctoday@cbc.ca. And this morning, we also heard from David Wong, President and CEO of ICBC. And here he is explaining how drivers will get that $110 rebate.
All personal and commercial customers who have a basic policy with us in February 2024 will receive the rebate. We're working as hard as possible to get the rebate out as fast as possible. The first rebates are expected to go out at the end of May, and then we're working every day thereafter to get the rest of the rebates out, and we expect that to be done by the end of July. How the customers get the rebates will be based on how they pay for their insurance. So if they pay by credit card, they're going to get a refund on their credit card. A new thing is if you pay for it by auto plan monthly payments, you're going to get a rebate on your payment plan, the first one starting in June. And if you pay by cash, debit, or check, you'll get your refund by check or direct deposit if you signed up for direct deposit. One of the fastest ways to get your money back is through direct deposit. And so if you haven't signed up for it already, we ask all our customers, sign up for it. You can do it by May 21st through your auto plan broker or through icbc.com.
That's David Wong, President and CEO of ICBC. Now, Premier David Eby says this is the fourth ICBC rebate since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's a different scene from 2018, when Eby described ICBC's finances as, you'll remember this, a dumpster fire. And back then, ICBC faced annual losses of $1 billion. So why the turnaround? Well, ICBC credits its investments and its new enhanced care, or essentially no-fault insurance model. That has faced criticism, though, from the Trial Lawyers Association of BC, as well as opposition parties. But this morning, Premier Eby hit back.
The proposal that was brought forward to fix this by John Rustad and Kevin Falcon was specifically to privatize insurance in British Columbia following the Alberta model, resulting in higher rates, lower benefits, and certainly no announcements like today's. Drivers can't afford that kind of approach, and remarkably, they have not learned from that. The proposal from John Rustad is that he would rip up this model of insurance for British Columbia, resulting in a $500 annual insurance increase for British Columbians. Well, they can't afford that. We stood up to the powerful interests that were quite satisfied with the status quo around ICBC. We had a very strong and organized lobby of very well-paid lawyers that were making significant political donations to the now opposition parties, and we cut legal fees out of the equation. And by doing that and focusing on ensuring drivers get the benefits they need, we've gotten ICBC back to where it is today and being able to make today's announcement.
Premier David Eby speaking in Victoria this morning. And we're asking you this half hour on BC Today, will this $110 rebate from ICBC and the announcement that basic rates will remain unchanged until 2026, will that help you? And what do you think of how ICBC is being managed? What do you think of the Premier there crediting its new enhanced care model? You can call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can also hit pound 690 on your cell phone. You can email bctoday@cbc.ca. Roman is calling us first from Port Alberni. Hi, Roman.
Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Will this help, do you think?
Well, you know what? It's a good start, and it is nice to see an effort. But as someone who's been involved in a motor vehicle incident, who was found to be absolutely 0% at fault, it is a laughable slap in the face. Because balanced against what has happened after the vehicle incident in which my car was totaled, my two children and my one daughter's hubby were hurt in, it's like enhanced care is an absolute misnomer. There was no care, there was no duty, there was how do we say it, a patting of their own back by the agents saying, well, you know what, well, we're offering you physiotherapy care, we have this many sessions for you, we have this many things for you. Those are generally covered under MSP to begin with. So if you're already covering stuff that's already contained within MSP and congratulating yourself for being so gregarious about it, this here really, really is an insult to people who've had lives changed. And there are people who've made it through a lot worse and are going through a lot worse, losing a loved one and then being told your son, daughter, whatever was only worth this much. It's great for the shareholders, but is this an Insurance Corporation of BC shareholders or is the Insurance Corporation of BC? That's my big question, and I'm scared to get in an accident again, whether or not I'm at fault or not, because the care is not enhanced; it is non-existent.
Did you? So there was a large discrepancy between, the cost of the care that you and your family needed, and what was offered to you. Then is that right?
It's not even down to cost. It's a fact that it almost seems as though the balance of the decision-making lies upon your agent's shoulders, and they can arbitrarily make decisions determining the outcome of your care, depending on whether you're nice or not. Is that a healthy model for anything that people are paying into as a public service?
Versus having lawyers involved.
Versus, well, I'm almost ready to see lawyers get involved because at least at that point, there were options available. This one is a dead-end alley. No matter how it plays out, it runs down a dead-end alley. You get nothing.
What you mentioned, shareholders. That's essentially the province and taxpayers too, Roman. You remember the concerns, and I totally take your your experience and how awful that must be, having to deal with the aftermath of a motor vehicle incident. How
My reply to that is simple.
Yeah.
You're going to know when it happens to you, and your opinion, your thoughts, your understanding of how it works will change and when it happens to you. And I'm not making this as any sort of veiled threat, but the understanding is this is not worth the same as having better access to after incident or after accident care. Options that could help you when you need it the most.
Yeah.
Because, again, coming down to it, we might feel fine about getting a $110 rebate, but how about getting someone saying, you know what, this accident was not your fault and these are the injuries, this is what it's going to be. As it was before, but maybe in a more tempered approach. To walk a balanced approach would be so much more beneficial, I think. And if we're only thinking about saving dollars, what other alternatives are there to having no care after the fact?
Okay. And to be clear, I wasn't sharing my opinion. I was just asking you from the perspective of the province.
Yeah. No, that's what I mean. That's what I mean is it's not against anyone personally.
Yeah.
My thought is against the corporation. Is your business model being given enough thought to what is actually intended for? What is it actually designed for? Is it there to provide insurance or is it there to provide benefit? If it's there to provide benefit, maybe it needs to have its model, its design, its name, and everything changed there within. So I'm just stating that my opinion and my outlook of ICBC has changed after I found absolutely no care after the fact, being involved in an accident where I was not at fault. And I had 2 of my children and one of my daughters and my daughter's hubby in the car with me where, again, it's a traumatic event, but we were left to our own devices to try and pick up the pieces after it.
Yeah. I hear you, Roman. I'm sorry for that experience, and I really appreciate your weighing in on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
You take care, okay?
Bye.
Bye-bye. That's Roman in Port Alberni, asking you what your thoughts are with how ICBC is being managed. That there was criticism of the move toward enhanced care, which happened in 2021. This basically moved from that legal-based system. At the time, the government was saying that a lot of the cost of ICBC was going toward litigation, but criticism, though, from the opposition at the time, the BC Liberals, and now BC United, called it, taking away the rights of accident victims and giving ICBC full responsibility for the care of those injured in car accidents. And the Trial Lawyers Association also was highly critical. As you heard, though, from Premier Eby there, he says the status quo is working, and that is why there is this, the turnaround in finances at ICBC, enough for this rates to stay the same and stay flat until 2026, and this rebate, the $110 coming for drivers. Asking you what you think. Will that rebate help you? Will the rates staying flat help you? What do you think of how ICBC is being managed? You can call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 as well. Joe is on the line next in Victoria. Hi, Joe. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. I'll try to throw out a few quick things so I can get a lot in my time. Premier Eby, if you really believe ICBC is running well, I suggest you do a complete forensic audit and find out how people who have gone through the system since the change are finding it. It's a disaster. The quick coaching, if anybody has just recently been in a motor vehicle accident and are just starting a claim, you've got this 12-week window where you can get treatment without challenge. And it's extremely important, even if you need help, seek that help immediately. Find out who the therapists in your area are who are skilled and can help you the most, and get online or on the phone and book your appointments as soon as possible, because your 12 weeks will tick away. And if you can't get your first appointment for 4 weeks with somebody, you get 2 subsequent appointments, and then they've got their holidays booked. You're going to find out that you get 2 treatments before you're back looking for a care provider again. And continuity of care is everything in healing after an accident. There's just so many ways to go. There's forms that you have to fill out that say how you're progressing. I think this one is called the OSD Back Index or something like that. And in one question, I think 4 out of 5 of the answers asks you how you're dealing with your healing, your pain, dealing with your pain with the use of painkillers. Well, painkillers shouldn't be mandatory once you've been in an accident. And you may want to consider contacting somebody like Reverend Altissic, who was with our place. And he'll give you the stats of how many of the homeless on our streets have been through injury with ICBC and WorkSafe BC and ended up hooked on painkillers and then got cut off the painkillers, went on to street drugs.
Joe, can I just jump in there, because that's interesting what you're saying. I haven't heard that before. We have interviewed Our Place Society in Victoria here, which deals with people in recovery, so you're saying if you were to speak with people who work there, you would find people who have become unhoused, who have been there because of pain from motor vehicle accidents?
Absolutely. I know of somebody who was a emergency responder, and that person was in a motor vehicle accident in their off time, back injury, went on painkillers, ended up losing everything, losing their family, their job. contact with their kids, everything wound up living on the street. And this was somebody who, one of our first responders, who, if our social safety net doesn't protect them, who is it going to protect? We need them. We absolutely need them. And if we can let them slip through our fingers and be pushed into addiction and the life of living on the street, it just really speaks to how poorly we're doing.
Do you think that comes with that change from the litigation system to enhanced care?
It's. I think it adds a different dimension to it for sure. About the litigation, if settlements, reasonable settlements, were just offered and people didn't have to litigate, there would not be any of those two layers of lawyers involved. And we see. I don't want to get astray here, but we sort of see similar things with negotiations with First Nations. Like legal battles will draw out for years before they settle, and then if the government loses, sometimes they seem to appeal and drag it back into court, and there's just more legal costs. If ICBC would have just helped people through their time of need, instead of forcing them into this debilitating legal struggle and the involved stress, because stress erases healing. That's all there is to it. And if they had just done that, and if subsequent governments had not stripped money out of ICBC like it was a cash cow, and that'd be great if BC Today could address that as well.
The history of ICBC's
on that.
Yeah.
We are stakeholders, and those are our premiums. And if it meant that after 10 years of no accidents, you didn't pay insurance because you didn't cost the system any money, that would have been great. There's no reason we should have been footing the bill for millions and millions of dollars of governments saying that they have a budget when they don't.
Joe, thank you so much. Really good to hear from you as well. Thank you for the call.
Thank you for giving me so much time. I wish you the best. Thanks for covering this. Bye for now.
Wish you the best as well. Bye-bye. Gordon is next in Vernon. Hi, Gordon.
Hey.
Hi there. What are your thoughts on ICBC?
It's laughable what the Premier just said and all of his representatives. I have an opinion. It's just my own opinion, but that they're just liars, because I'm a retired paramedic. September 2022, I was riding my motorcycle from Kelowna to Vernon, just about to do my retirement down to the U.S. And on the way home, I was run down by a novice driver who had her license for like 2 weeks. So she impacted my motorcycle, which is probably the best handling performance you could ever get, best safety gear. And I was thrown 32 feet or 10 meters. So it's multi-system blunt force trauma. I had a fracture to my L2 in my lumbar. And when I arrived at Kelowna Hospital, they just said, you have a complex medical history. And I said, yes, because as a paramedic 28 years ago, I hurt my back. I had agony, and I ended up 2021 having WorkSafe BC fully fund me to go to Germany to get 3 lumbar discs implanted, which allows me to walk and ski and play volleyball, which I haven't done for 30 years. And then a year after that surgery, was run down by this idiot. It's just my opinion.
Okay.
But and since then, ICBC, they knowingly, last summer, they knew that the surgeons in Germany did the assessment, and they said, you have 2 cervical discs that are herniated, that are causing acute cervical radiculopathy, which
Gordon,
is the nerves are not working in my arms.
It sounds like you've been through a lot, and I'm sorry to move you along here, but what...
But ICBC's ignored me for 2 months. They haven't paid any medical care.
Yeah.
They haven't paid for wage replacement, and they've ignored me for the last 2 months. Now, patients like me, I could be anybody in British Columbia, but if you hang up the phone on somebody who's injured in a motor vehicle accident,
oh dear,
basically, that's what happens to me. I get hung up on, in that they say that they're going to give care. The reality that all British Columbians need to know is that they don't provide health care, because ICBC is prevented from funding surgery that's required out of the province, and they have all these other bureaucracies. And so it's really frustrating. And essentially, I feel as if there was no insurance, because why do you pay for insurance when you have no care? And I've been sitting for since September 2022 with
Yeah,
intractable
Gordon,
pain.
I'm so sorry
So-
that you have this intractable pain, and that you're obviously coming into a lot of roadblocks as you try and get care for yourself. Thank you so much for
Well, there is
calling.
no care. There is
Right,
no
there
care
is no
for-
care.
from ICBC.
Okay,
I mean,
Gordon, thank you very much. I'm so sorry. I have to move on to Andre in Victoria. Hi, Andre.
Hi, how's it going?
I'm fine, thank you. I just have a couple minutes left here, but what did you want to say about ICBC?
I think ICBC is great. I grew up in Seattle where it's all private insurance. And when I was first starting out as a driver, I used to have to pay $225 a month for private insurance. And if that's the way that people want to go up here, that's what happens when you get private insurance. And I was in a major car accident down there, and it's the same kind of outcome. You don't get this big payday. It all just gets eaten up with the attorneys. You still get terrible care because it's private insurance down there. So seeing both sides of the fence, sure, there's things that we can improve here with ICBC, but we're moving in the right direction.
Okay, and so you raised the point about calls for more competition as well. That's come up in the past. Andre, thank you very much for your call as well.
Cheers.
Take care. That's Andre, and thank you so much for all of your calls. That's bctoday@cbc.ca if you want to leave us an email. I'm sorry that we're not getting to Nora in Maple Ridge. Nora, thank you so much for calling in, though. And thank you to all of our callers as well. And Rhonda at Dawson Creek, I'm sorry we're not able to get to you. It is 12:27 now, 1:27 in the Mountain Time Zone. This is BC Today. Now, a story just breaking in the community of Jaffrey. RCMP say they're looking for a suspect involved in what they describe as a disturbance with a weapon. So if you see an older model dark gray Ford F-150 with a headache rack, a camouflage along the sides, and heavy damage to the windshield and front end, RCMP are asking you to call 911. Police say it is not an active threat, but the suspect remains at large. There will be more details here on CBC News as soon as we have it. Now, Jaffrey is between Cranbrook and Fernie along the Crow's Nest Highway, and lots more on our website, on the news coming up at 12:30 as well, and throughout the afternoon here on CBC Radio and CBC Television. And coming up, more stories on the afternoon shows in your region, including Radio West with host Sarah Penton.
Hi there. Coming up today on Radio West, we're talking lake tsunamis. Turns out they're a thing, and they cause a significant threat because of climate change. They're triggered by landslides that fall into smaller bodies of water. We'll talk to an Alaskan geologist who studies these lake tsunamis. Plus, our money columnist, Bruce Sellery, joins us to break down that money laundering case involving TD Bank, what that might mean for the bank and its customers. And we'll head to the West Kootenay to meet a pair of writers of a new graphic novel. It's about female Doukhobor firefighters, and also we're sharing messages for moms for our Mother's Day contest. Lots to get to today on Radio West. We're so looking forward to it. We're up at 4 o'clock Pacific, 5 o'clock Mountain.
Thank you very much. That's Sarah Penton, host of Radio West. You can hear her this afternoon in the interior and the north. We were asking you for your thoughts on ICBC and whether this rebate that's just been announced today and flat rates until 2026 helps. What do you think of how ICBC is being managed? Karen writes, pandering for votes is the problem with politics today, no matter which party. EB's opponents recently criticized the NDP government's failure to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Why not put those rebates toward climate solutions that will benefit all BC residents, all Canadians? I'd rather have a future than a rebate. I want elected leaders to focus on priorities, especially the climate emergency. H writes, this is pretty bald-faced vote buying if you ask me. And Maurice writes, I think the insurance rates are still too high. I purchased a used car last month. My insurance went up again from my old rate from my 2016 Dodge Charger with all-wheel drive, $155 to $177. I'll take the rebate, but I think the increase is a little too high for a senior. And Don writes, government should stop interfering in ICBC operations, or better yet, privatize vehicle insurance. Thanks so much for all of your thoughts. bctoday@cbc.ca is our email address. And much more on today's announcement and the politics around it throughout the day here on CBC. It's 12:31 now, 1:31 in the Mountain Time Zone. You're with BC Today here on CBC. We're live on radio, on CBC television, live streaming as well. You can find us on YouTube. Just search for CBC Vancouver's page. And coming up in our next half hour, we're going to talk about young people in BC who inspire you. We want to ask about the youth in your life who gives you inspiration. That's in light of BC Youth Week just wrapping up. I'm Michelle Elliott. We'll be back, and here's Robert Zimmerman with a CBC News update.
Good afternoon. Police are hunting for a suspect southeast of Cranbrook after reports of a disturbance involving a weapon. Officers were dispatched this morning to a rural property near Baines Lake. Few details have been released, but police believe the incident was targeted and there are no reports of injuries. As we've been hearing on the show, most BC drivers will receive a $110 rebate on their vehicle insurance this year. ICBC says it's in a solid position to offer rebates because of strong investment and financial returns. Officials say insurance rates will also remain frozen for at least 2 years. And Vancouver police say they are supportive of the city's plan to hold neighborhood-based viewing parties for the Canucks playoffs, starting with Game 3 against the Oilers on Sunday. A major viewing party will be at Oak Meadows Park, which can hold about 2,000 people in the South Cambie area. Community centers will also show games in their lobbies, and the city is planning viewing events at the PNE if the Canucks advance to the next round. And now the forecast on the north coast, mainly cloudy this afternoon with a high of 12. Highs up to 18 with some sunshine and strong winds in the Peace. In the central interior, including Prince George, a mix of sun and cloud with a high of 16. Highs from 15 to 22 with sunshine in the West Kootenay, cloudy in the East Kootenay. In the southern interior, sunny with a high of 20. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria and the Fraser Valley, sunny this afternoon with highs up to 16 degrees. That's your CBC News update from Vancouver.
There seems to be a buzz around the fact there's going to be viewing parties in Vancouver.
Yeah, well, they were sure fun last time. I mean, before the riots.
Yes,
but yes.
For a certain amount of time now. I just wanted you to hear some of the fans we spoke to in Vancouver this morning. Here they are.
I think it's great. You know what? It's good. It's a good, positive community event that happens. And if we can all get together to be able to cheer our team on, then fabulous.
I don't need a crowd around me to enjoy the Canucks. So I'm quite happy to watch at home and have a beer.
People, they keep on going back to 2011. It's like one incident that happened 13 years ago, and yet they carry it on to this day.
Yeah, riots also happened in the 90s, so I don't know, the city's kind of proven that it can't handle the pressure.
Okay, so there you go. I mean, Sunday could have a good turnout.
I think so. Oak Meadows Park, I don't actually know that park.
I think a lot of people didn't.
Yeah, it's not around the city, so obviously the downtown core, obviously, they are trying to avoid, so that's probably a better strategy.
Yes, I think they're hoping for a lot of families to come and have that family vibe. But, you know, it's funny hearing that person say, I don't need a crowd to enjoy the Canucks. I do.
Is that right? You enjoy it more?
Yes, I do.
I'm open either way, honestly. Yeah.
Well, you're a true Blue fan. I'm a bandwagoner. I
Yeah,
think that's
we don't mind
the difference.
Michelle, hopping on the bandwagon.
Thanks for letting me in.
Sure.
Yeah, appreciate it. Rob, I will see you on Sunday. The weather's going to be nice too. Thanks so much. That's Robert Zimmerman in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. This is BC Today. $12:35 now, 1:35 in the Mountain Time Zone. You're with BC Today. I'm Michelle Elliott. Thanks so much for being with us. Now, we often hear about challenges that our province youth face, but we're going to turn it around today and bring you some stories of young people tackling society's challenges head on. And we're just coming out of BC Youth Week after all. So from young change makers in your neighborhood to this year's high school graduates, young people, making a difference in your own community, we want to hear from you about youth in your life who inspire you. You can let us know. 1-800-825-5950 is our toll-free number. In Metro Vancouver, it's 604-669-3733. You can also hit pound 690 on your cell phone. You can email bctoday@cbc.ca. And we're going to meet two young people right now who are making a difference in their communities. 16-year-old Zack Weinberg is the founder of the Zack Pack Project, which assembles waterproof backpacks of essential items for unhoused people in Metro Vancouver. And 18-year-old Parker Morrison is the winner of the 2023 Youth Climate Activism Award from the Institute for Sustainability Education and Action on Salt Spring Island. Now, before we meet them, our own youth here on our team, BCIT intern Richard Davis, spoke with some volunteers with Zack Pack. These are Desiree Turnbull, Alan Miller, and Len Unisa, who were at an event last Friday in North Vancouver, where they were assembling the kits to help Metro Vancouver's unhoused population.
I think there's been about 40 of us or something like that here today, and it's just been so energetic. Everyone's brought such a great attitude, smiles on everybody's faces.
The majority of them were under 30. They were youngsters. They were the people that often old people complain about, but they were so motivating, so inspiring, so ambitious, so kind, so generous.
I think it's great that the youth are taking initiative to think of things beyond TikTok and Instagram and beyond themselves, and thinking about others that they can help.
It's impressive that a 16-year-old and his family put this project together. The pure motivation, and it's inspiring to me as a young adult to see that our youth are this motivated to help people who are experiencing homelessness and mental health challenges, and people experiencing stigma as a result of this.
So I think if we have youth that are participating in helping elevate the lives of others, I think we're going to have a great future ahead of us.
Oh, well, those were some Zack Pack volunteers. They were speaking with our BCIT intern here on BC Today, Richard Davis. Zack Weinberg joins me now, along with climate activist Parker Morrison. Hello to both of you.
Hey,
Hi.
How's it going?
Very well. Thanks so much for joining us. I love that, going beyond TikTok and Instagram to inspire people. How do you feel about, people speaking about you in this way, in this light, Zack?
Well, I'm very grateful for any highlighting the Zack Pack project has received, because obviously the goals of the project in terms of dismantling some stigma and making discussions around the unhoused community more common, I think, yes, I'm very grateful that it's been covered, because otherwise I would not be able to get this message out to the people that I want to hear.
What led you to start the Zack Pack project in the first place?
Well, for that, I have to go back a few years to when I moved to Vancouver from my hometown of Winnipeg, Manitoba. Now, obviously, the issue of homelessness in Winnipeg is very real, but in Vancouver, it's far more apparent, and it's quite concentrated, especially in the downtown east side, although obviously it is present in other neighborhoods. And so as a kid, exploring my new community when I had just moved there, even then I was shocked by how apparent the issue was, especially in a beautiful city and in a very developed country like Canada. And so I always wanted to do something to give back to this community. And so over time, it grew from me handing out Tim Hortons gift cards once when I was about 10 years old going to a movie in Vancouver's Chinatown, to then wanting to do a drive for socks and toothbrushes. Now, I started with those two items because I got in contact with an outreach organization called Coast Mental Health, and they gave me a list of the items that their clients might need. And socks and toothbrushes were on the list, and me, who as an 11-year-old at the time, thought, well, any kid would have extras of those, so I could set up a box at my school. But then I wanted to do more research into this issue. I started talking with other outreach organizations. And so my passion started to grow. And from that passion growing, I wanted to scale up the project too. So I was going to do those 2 items, then to 6, then to a dozen, and then from a set of 600 bags to 2,200, which was the amount we did. to the first edition of the Zack Pack right before the lockdown in 2020.
Wow. That was so much growth, right, over that small kernel of an idea that you started with, Zack. Parker, what about you? You've won this climate activism award. What was it that you did that garnered it?
So back in about 2022, I started a project called Restoring Our Riverbanks, which initially started as just a research thing for something called a capstone project in our grade 12 year.
Right, this
And
is
so I
sort
was
of a
just
career
research-
project, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I've always been interested in restoration and conservation topics and stuff. And so I initially just started researching, and then Jason Wong from PSF, he actually came to our climate club and was talking about all the ways like he's helped endangered salmon species all over BC. And I was like, wait, there's fish in our local river, the North Thompson, which is like probably a 5-minute walk from my house. And there's all these rusty cars here. How can we help, restore this area? So I
Wow.
talked to him about it. And since December of 2022, this project has been ongoing in trying to restore the riverbanks in this area and hopefully inspire more river restoration in BC.
Wow, that's amazing. Taking away that waste, that rusted waste from the North Thompson. How do you feel about that?
It's so encouraging to see the support from the community with this project and to know that there's been so many efforts to remove all this rustic waste. There's hundreds of cars probably in there in like a 600-foot area. And it's just been sitting there since the 70s. And so to see that we're finally making, movement with removing these cars, it's very encouraging and it helps me want to do more restoration processes.
My goodness, that sounds just so remarkable. Parker Morrison is with me, as you heard. She's a climate activist who's actually done work to restore the North Thompson River by removing rusted waste. And we're also joined by Zack Weinberg, who's a founder of Zack Pack Project, which provides backpacks, waterproof backpacks of essentials for unhoused people in Metro Vancouver. Certainly inspiring, the two of you. And we would love to hear from our audience as well. Who is a young person in your life who inspires you? Love to hear from you. 1-800-825-5950. 604-669-3733, and you can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Charlene is calling us from Maple Ridge. Hi, Charlene. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Not sure. Have you got me here?
We've gotten you on the line, and I'm so glad that you've called in. Who's a young person who inspires you?
My daughter. And not to diminish from all of the amazing youth that are doing amazing work out in the community, but I also wanted to point out that sometimes for some of our youth who are struggling, it's just the really small act of getting out of bed every day. For my daughter, that means getting up every day and staring down an eating disorder and continuing to move on through her life and facing down some really hard stuff. And I just, when the question was posed, what inspires you? Every day I'm inspired by my daughter and her courage and her strength and her bravery, because eating disorders are scary monsters.
Absolutely. What do you hear from her about what keeps her going, Charlene?
It varies day to day. It really varies. Some days are good days, some days are not so good days. It's what keeps her going, I think, is just her connection to the people in her life who can see her and hope for the future, I think, which is sometimes really difficult for people with eating disorders to see. And it's taken a monumental, massive family effort to get the ground back underneath her. But we're in a better place than we were a year ago, and there's hope, and she's so inspiring every day.
I certainly find her story to be so inspiring. Anything you want to say more about your daughter?
Well, I know she's not listening to this because she thinks I'm a nerd because I listen to CBC, but
my kids too.
She's amazing. She's just amazing, and she has an incredible future, and I hope that someday she will arrive at a place where she can use her voice to impact people who are going through something similar to what she's gone through. I think lived experience, especially with people who are struggling with mental illness, can be really powerful. And I'm holding out that hope for her. And in the meantime, we're just going to keep getting out of bed every day and putting one foot in front of the other.
Oh, you are a proud mom, and I understand why. Charlene, thank you so much. I'm inspired by your daughter. She's making an impact right now through her story. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. That's Charlene in Maple Ridge. What a story of bravery. Absolutely. When you're dealing with your own personal challenges and being able to, as she said, get up every day. Perhaps I'll just take some reaction from my guests, Zack and Parker. I mean, what do you take from that? You have friends, I'm sure, peers, and you talk about these kinds of challenges. What is it like for young people right now facing these kinds of mental health challenges? From what you know, just from anecdotes and.
Well, me personally, since graduating from high school and stuff, I've noticed that it's hard sometimes to connect with your community and to talk about these issues. But if really putting yourself out there helps, I think just finding someone that you feel confident in, finding someone that you really trust, that it helps wonders, and finding what you're passionate about as well. I know I was in a tough spot before I started the project, and finding my passion and I feel like my life's journey in helping with conservation restoration, that helped a world I can't even put into words how much that helped me. And so I think finding a hobby, finding anything, an interest, I feel like it just helps so many people.
Yeah. What about you, Zack? What do you take from the story that Charlene just shared and how inspiring her daughter is?
I believe that story, it was super inspiring. It really touched my heart. And well, I can't speak to any personal anecdotes as I haven't experienced any sort of mental health challenges near that in magnitude. What I can speak to is my experience working actually through the Zack project, where people experiencing homelessness disproportionately face mental health issues. I believe the number I was told was that about 41% of people experiencing homelessness have at least one diagnosed mental health issue. And in terms of how that can be combated, I think my opinion on this comes from one of my more recent visits to one of our Zack outreach partners, City Reach. And I got to tour their facility and I talked to them about this sort of community that they're trying to instill. And the big message that I got out of all of their outreach workers there was this idea of hope. This idea that if you have something to get you out of bed in the morning and to push you because you believe there is something more in the future, that I think can be truly inspiring and can really push people to keep going.
Yeah, it's your stories that give hope, and certainly Charlene's story, she talked about hope as well, and I think that's just so impactful to be able to share. And again, as she mentioned, lived experience, so important. Thank you again for the call, Charlene. All the best to you and your family. Bonnie is up next in Nelson. We are asking you, who's a young person in your life who inspires you? Love to hear your story. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can email us too, bctoday@cbc.ca. And hello to Bonnie in Nelson.
Hello.
Hi, thanks for calling. Who's a young person who inspires you?
Well, you know that I'm a senior, and I've been a member of the Women's Liberation Movement since the beginning. And I go to the Women's Center, and there are things that are happening there that don't inspire me very much with the people running it. But I go there because I meet all these wonderful young people, mostly women in that context. But when I volunteer at the Civic, young people in this community are just incredible. And okay, you wanted a name, Felicia, who does so much work at the Civic Theater, which we're trying to keep going, and Greg, her partner, who works tirelessly to make sure that this community organization works. There's so many, and I was,
It sounds like you've developed relationships with them yourself, Bonnie.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know them all, and they're wonderful, wonderful, wonderful young people, and they just inspire me tremendously to be optimistic about the world that we're living in. I know that Nelson is kind of something of a cocoon, but I tell you, it's the most sweet cocoon that you could ever get involved in.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, Bonnie, that's lovely. And thank you for giving their names as well. Perhaps giving them a shout out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the Civic is shut down now because they have to fix this old Civic Theater. And so they've moved out, and now it's all volunteers running it.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, and young people volunteering. Bonnie, thank you so much. Great to shout out to the young people volunteering at the Civic Center and the Women's Center in Nelson. Is there someone who volunteers, someone in your life, your family, in your community, a young person who inspires you? We'd love to hear from you. 1-800-825-5950. 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. My two guests are young people with inspiring stories. 18-year-old Parker Morrison works to restore the North Thompson River by reclamation, by removing rusted waste. And she was the winner of the 2023 Youth Climate Activism Award from the Institute for Sustainability Education and Action. And as well, joining us is Zack Weinberg, the founder of the Zack Pack Project, which assembles waterproof backpacks of essential items for unhoused people in Metro Vancouver. Let me go back to you, Parker. You know, we are talking about hope. Zack talked a lot about that hope and optimism. Where do you find that? Because we are also dealing with a climate emergency. Someone touched on it in our last half hour, and a lot of young people have to face that sort of climate anxiety that we hear about. And how do you find hope in order to be able to do the work that you do?
I honestly just find hope in our generation of youths. I find that so many young people just aren't giving up as easily. I think that we're just fighters and we're fighting for our climate and we know that it's going to affect us the most. And so seeing so many people passionate about protecting our climate and doing whatever they can to save the planet, that's where I find hope, is within the community of people who are like-minded and just want to help others.
What about you, Zack? Where do you find hope and optimism given, homelessness is a crisis here in BC?
I think I find hope in two ways. So the first way is just insofar as we have over 40 outreach partners that I've worked with, I've seen that even though there's a lot of these organizations that are understaffed and underfunded, the people that are there really do care. And it's more of an issue of being able to help than wanting to help. Because I'm sure there's tons of people that want to help, but just don't think they can or can't put in the time to make a significant change. But obviously a significant change, it's only part of this story. Like small changes can also be very impactful in a large sum. But in terms of the second way that I find hope, specifically in terms of the project, is when I got all of my friends to come out and volunteer just this last Friday to pack the most recent edition of the Zack Pack bags, it was really inspiring to see that, if you look hard enough and if you have to send out a ton of emails to find volunteers, but there are tons of people that actually really do care and can become passionate about it. And actually, if I can add a third, another way we find hope.
Please do. We will take all that we can.
Sure. Yeah. Is that, and I want to echo some of Parker's sentiments here too, is that our generation doesn't have much of a choice. There's a lot of political, environmental, social, economic issues that seem to be coming to a head right now. And so I think we as a generation have all realized that we can't just lay down and take it. And so we have to have hope and will it from somewhere deep within us to try to get through it.
Thank you very much. Let's take an email now. We're asking you, who are young people who inspire you? Heather writes us, I'm the director of a community modern dance company called Youth in Motion. It's at the Shadbolt Center for the Arts in Burnaby. And the dancers are in grades 5 to 12, and they show incredible commitment, work ethic, expression, and collaborative skills. I love working with them, and I'm so lucky to have a creative job working with these bright young dancers. Best job ever. Heather, thank you very much. I am familiar with this program at Shadbolt. My daughter was involved with them as well, and they are very inspirational, as is my daughter. Just to put that in there, and my son. I'm going to wrap up here with our guests, Zack and Parker. I just have about a couple of minutes left, but Parker, what do you want to share in terms of, how Yeah, how people can relate to young people and see young people in that positive light. Because as I started out saying, we often hear about challenges when it comes to youth. How can we turn that around?
I think just keep going. Like with my own project, I've been through some standstills fighting, different parts of like government issues and stuff, and like whose project is this? Like all those kind of things. And so through that, sometimes it is hard to keep going and like maintain that hope. However, if you find a community, and again, our entire generation believes in all these issues and resolving them, you're able to find those communities so easily and have that support and to continue to have hope. Again, it's finding that passion, finding what you love to do, and finding how you can make a difference in the world that gives other people hope, and in return it gives yourself more hope and more confidence to do what you do.
Wow. And what about for you, Zach? You said youth don't have a choice. I just have about 45 seconds. How do you turn things from challenges that youth face to optimism and hope?
Well, I think to do that and to find hope, every person has to find a passion that they can do so that they can feel like they're contributing. And so there is hope that they are creating for themselves. And to get that inspiration, you just have to start doing. There's tons of outreach organizations across every single community for different charities and issues that need help. And so go out to them, volunteer for a bunch of them, and maybe you'll just find one or two that you're passionate about and can dedicate yourself to.
Just start doing. There's a slogan for you. Zack and Parker, thank you so much. Congratulations on all your excellent work. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Zack Weinberg is founder of the Zack Pack Project, and Parker Morrison is a climate activist based in Kamloops. Thank you so much to our own inspiring young person here, Richard Davis, our intern, for producing that segment. And you can email us some more young people who inspire you, bctoday@cbc.ca.